Welcome to the IO Nebo podcast. I'm your number one host, Bella.
Hi guys, listen to the Ionable Tech Podcast.
And today I have in my midst on the Zoom Mr. David Letsa, Doctor number one. You know, I can relate him to, is it Mr. Carson? Yes. If you've watched Gifted Hands, you know what I'm talking about. And we can call Samoa Pia. Oh, if you don't know him, he's the next Bill Gates. So I just told you. And these people are Ghanaians. We are proud of our people. Anyway, before human beings were getting sick, suffering, there were medicines. We started talking about medicines and things like that. And now, as the world progresses and technology enters, there's a need to use technology in healthcare. However, that's the reason I brought these two nice young men onto this podcast to tell us more and shed light on what's going on in the health world. David.
Hello.
As a doctor you are, tell me something about the past or the transition between then and now and how we've put technology into solving healthcare issues.
Yeah, so the past is very wide. So I like to start from the aspect of organized healthcare. So organized healthcare as we know it took shape in the 1900s, and the triage system that we know today that's used in most ambulance services was perfected by the French during the World Wars. And in the 1950s, most of the advancements we see came to be. So it became more streamlined into 3 or 4 main sectors. So we have in modern day healthcare, we have primary care, secondary care, tertiary care, and quaternary care. So in primary healthcare, we have the health professionals who are the first points of consultation for all patients in the healthcare system. So this is your general practitioner or family physician, the doctor you can go to see at the clinic to take care of basic ailments such as headache, stomach ache, basic ailments. Then we also have secondary care, which is more about urgent care and acute care. For example, you don't take a pregnant lady who's about to deliver to your primary care physician. You take them to get the baby delivered, right?
Yeah.
So this includes the intensive care and hospital services, such as the imaging and also includes the more specialized providers, such as psychiatrists and psychotherapists. Then in tertiary care, that's where we have the neurosurgeons, the cardiac surgeons, the plastic surgeons, and so on. And quaternary care is even more advanced. So that's the basic overview of the medical system as we know it and how it became more streamlined to what we have today.
Thank you, David. That was a nice contribution. Samo,
Boss.
the moment I start to talk about AI and healthcare, that's the moment I look for you.
Yeah.
Tell me something. How has
Um.
tech influenced the current health system?
I. I think so. If you ask specifically how AI is improving, I think that's another topic. But healthcare in itself is technology, right? You're applying science. So all the improvements we've seen with the manufacturing of drugs and being able to tackle pandemics like corona and all of that. I think you can even just look at something as simple as social media, sort of spreading, hey, there's something called coronavirus and it could come to your country and your country should start and all of that. People should prepare for it. That's even one brilliant, beautiful thing, right? It used to be that if something was going on at one place, you couldn't tell the other, and the other couldn't, or the other country couldn't prepare for, and all of that. In terms of AI with with health care or just like futuristic tech in general. It's more of so I think you have healthcare providers, the people who need healthcare, and the people actually bridging the two, which is doctors and nurses and all of that. I don't think the symbiotic relationship between them is it's growing, but it's not very concrete yet. So that is why I see like AI sort of expanding the networks between them, and trying to find, hey, what is actually the relationship between the doctor and this patient, and what has this doctor done in this country that could actually affect this doctor's relationship in another country with a similar patient. You could also look at robotics in terms of surgeons, and you have robots aiding surgeons and all of that, and being able to deliver quick diagnostics. You have Jeopardy, sorry, Watson, the IBM AI that was used in the Jeopardy program. You have it being used more for healthcare diagnostics and all of that. So, and also research in healthcare, and trying different combinations that would solve certain diseases. So that's I think it's a interesting and brilliant field so far, and tech is definitely advancing healthcare in all aspects, considering that healthcare in itself is a tech field.
Thank you. So here's what you mentioned: AI making prescription drugs,
Yeah.
or helping in prescription drugs.
Hmm.
Just on the funny side. Well, I was told by a friend that if you go to America and you mention drugs, you start to think about cocaine and stuff like that. So I shouldn't be mentioning
Hmm.
drugs. Call it medication. How far is that true? Anyway, is it true?
Like, I think it depends on the state you are in,
The
and
state you
it's
are in.
just lingo. Yeah.
Yeah. David, what about
You
you?
know.
You being the doctor, make I not go talk drug. I don't want trouble.
Just try to be politically correct.
Okay, so here's what. Is AI making prescription drugs safer, or prescribing drugs for patients safer? I don't know. Is it? Because back here in Ghana, you can just walk to the counter and get medications. And there are a few of the shops who say bring prescriptions. But let's compare that to, is AI making prescription drugs safer? Let's take it. Yeah.
I think with people who are technophiles, people who like technology and everything, we kind of get swept away in the hype because in reality, right, most general practitioners or people who are involved in actual day-to-day medical care feel like the role of AI is very limited and mainly focused on administrative and routine documentation. So I won't say it's getting as far as into that field in the medical setting, the clinical setting, but in the companies or in the private sector where people are, where people are in charge of their own companies and make startups and so on. I think in those fields is where AI is seeing most advancements. So even some of these studies and stuff are done in line with some of these like setups by themselves, as well as interacting with universities and so on. So as for creation of drugs, there was an OCD drug that was made called DSP-1181, and this was made in I think 20, no, not 20, yeah, 2019 in September by a company called In Silico Medicine, right? And they reported that they created about 6 novel drugs for this condition, obsessive compulsive disorder. And it would have taken a normal pharmaceutical company about 5 years to develop the same drug,
Mm.
not included the human trial aspect. So I mean, it's definitely possible for AI to have these kind of executions, but this was limited to a study.
Mm.
Maybe in the next 10 years, we might see more advancements in medicine than we've seen for the past 100 years, which is a big statement, but it's definitely plausible.
I
The
like the
only the
comment.
only the only hindrance is just that because of the nature of medicine and it actually involves people's lives. It's a very restricted field. You don't want anyone to come in and mess up the health of your population.
David, it's interesting you said something in your statement about patient records. I will just direct this question to Apia. Apia, do you think all patient records kept on the cloud are safe? Or would it be a safe place to keep patient records? Thinking about people's data being hacked and confidentiality with patient issues, like somebody going to the psychiatrist and he would want his information to be private, you know, and maybe his records are stored online. How safe is that? I mean, is this safe?
I think it depends on the system you're using. I mean, if you're talking about like maybe you're storing on AWS, GCP, Azure, there are multiple ways you can mitigate the risk factors in terms of like someone hacking into that. You could also hash the values and store them inside. There are many ways you can mitigate the risk factors in terms of storing something on the cloud. I think if you had it in a hospital system or if you had it in like books, I think that's more vulnerable than just having it in the cloud. It's you could reference it like, okay, if you had all your diary in a sorry, your thoughts or your deepest thoughts or your deepest secrets in a book that I can just open, right? Versus if I had it on a phone that you had to put in some passwords before you can type. I would go for the phone option. That even though it's not like completely safe, it's safer than the existing options right now. Yeah, so I would say it's safer keeping it in the cloud. And I mean, as time goes on, it would be increasingly safe. And you have also AI being used in like security fields and all of that. And with the AI question too, AI, I like to. I'm a big proponent of AI, but I don't like to overstate its benefits. AI is really just having the computer to do what it's built to do more efficiently. To say we are creating human, like there was this recent GCP three GPT, sorry, three writing its own program, doing generating interesting text that like no NLP programmers, natural processing language programmers, been able to do in the history of computer science and all of that. It's really not like to look at a company say, oh, I created this OCD drug, like what he was saying. It's just doing like multiple combinations. So let's say it would take probably a human being maybe a year or two to make all these chemical combinations and see which one is more efficient. You can do that simulation faster with AI methods, and it's really just algorithms and data manipulation skills that are used on that. It's really not anything huge. So there is potential over there, but it's really not something that's like rocket science. Even rocket science, Elon Musk is solving it, so it's not a big deal. Yeah.
So that guy with the
Yeah.
boring question.
Can I interject?
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
All right, Melash, when are you having Elon Musk on your podcast?
It would be nice to have him on. It would be
All
very
right.
nice to have him on. You know, I was
So
about
I think your tech people who like listening to your show
yeah.
will find this company very interesting. It's called Work Fusion.
Mm-hmm.
And Work Fusion is a leader in AI-driven automation, and they also do robotic process automation, sorry. And they have like a case study they did on automating the cloud in healthcare, to store documents and so on. And they said it prevents misdirection and reduces human error. But my problem with the cloud is that it is still prone to, hackers and so on. So I think if they can definitely guarantee the security of the document, then I think it's most likely very safe. And I think most things are moving in the direction of automation and being digitized. We are going to be living in a more digital world in the next 10 years. So with everything, all this documentation and patient records and stuff is going to be moving towards the cloud. So I don't think anything can hinder it unless maybe in the next 2 years or something, there's like a major global breach in like everybody's cloud. So unless
Which
something
is
that
impossible.
crazy happens, which is like an episode of like, what's the name of this movie? Mr. Robot. Yeah, the series. Unless
Yeah.
like an episode of Mr. Robot, like everything's moving towards the cloud. So
So
yeah.
like
Yeah,
I
and
have a
just to add to, oh, wait, go for it.
oh well add to it,
Go
but
for it.
make it short. No, go ahead.
Mhm.
Because the
No,
question I'm
I
going to
was just
ask is
gonna
broad.
say, I think it's harder to hack into an email than to break into a person's room or a hospital like room or record keeping room. So I think it's you are of the like a higher magnitude of safety storing something on the cloud or on a computer, even with just a password, than putting it in a
Okay.
book, I think.
The thing about the cloud too is like, where is this cloud? What country is the cloud based in? What are the political affiliations of the country that's storing the cloud to the country you're in? Like there are a lot of like nuances and stuff. And
So
obviously there are levels of hackers. They are the ones who can literally get into any kind of system. And there are those who do like the basic phishing. So
Yeah.
there's
I
levels to
do also
everything. And
think the
so
the
guys,
concept or notion of hackers are overhyped, but yeah,
let me
let's
ask a
or
quick question. Let
I
me
mean, most
let me
stuff in
add
the tech
something to
field
it.
is
Let me add
overhyped.
something to it. Obviously,
I can't hear you.
uh, okay.
Okay.
Obviously, anything stored on the cloud will have its
Mhm.
pros and cons. Obviously, yeah. Now, let me say something. Let me ask the $1 million question. Do you think tech can help us find a solution to COVID-19?
Um, I so I was given an answer to this, and I said that tech can help us solve almost everything, depending that you're asking the right questions. You have a group of really smart people working on taking the right approaches and all of that. I think it can solve almost everything. Yeah.
David, being a doctor on the
Yeah.
ground, tell me your opinion on that.
Yeah, so tech is already helping with the coronavirus pandemic. So I encourage anyone who has like a phone or internet connection to just type in Google like AI coronavirus. You're gonna see a lot of studies done by researchers all over the world and how they are applying AI technology to combat the coronavirus pandemic, right?
Yeah.
So there are so many incentives by Huawei, Alibaba, so many groups, universities, and so on, using AI to track, identify, and forecast outbreaks. There's a company in Ghana called Mino Health, which is actually doing this. Some people are using AI to diagnose the virus. There's a company called Intervision, yes, which is powered by Alibaba,
Mhm.
and that's what you're doing. So as for AI, it's already being used in efforts to fight the coronavirus. There's even like a division of Google's DeepMind that's working on AI algorithms to do all of this. So as for AI and its applications, they are really boundless, but it's just going to get more and more nuanced in the future. So
Interesting. So before we wrap up our podcast, I'm going to ask a few questions about remote surgery operations, which is David on your field. Have you ever used any?
have
I'm
I ever
curious.
used remote surgery
Mm,
operations?
mm.
No, I have personally not used remote surgery operations. But yeah, remote surgery. has had a lot of it has come a long way. It's really come a long way from what it was capable of to
Mm.
what we can do now. So now the robots are able to have more nuanced, tactile, movements. Like I don't know if anyone listening is an engineer, but to replicate the finger movements
Mm-hmm.
like piano or like holding a thread and a needle is very, very difficult in terms of engineering.
Hmm.
So for them to come to this level is so good. So it took a lot of money for them to come through. And there's the Da Vinci surgical system, which cost about $1 million or something to come in operation. There are a few of them like in New York and so on. So bit by bit is getting success. And maybe in the future, I know this is going to sound very like sci-fi, like you're watching a movie kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But in the future, it's definitely possible you go into like a hospital
Yeah.
and there might be no one in the hospital. You just see a robot. The robot is going to lead you to where you have to do the surgery, get a bunch of instructions from an Alexa like machine, and sit on the bed, and the robot gives you anesthesia. And there's a remote doctor doing the operation on you from somewhere else in the world. Could be in America, could be in Japan. You know, I know it sounds very sci-fi, but it's definitely a possible future. But it's going to take a long while for it to get there.
Mm.
So yeah.
Imagine a robot giving you injection.
I mean, it's definitely possible. There's the
Sammy, you run
company
away.
in
I would actually feel more safer, but
Are you
yeah,
serious?
yeah.
there's a company in the Netherlands. The name escapes me, but they actually invented a phlebotomy device or machine. So I don't know if you guys have ever experienced it, but I'm sure Melash definitely has. When some nurses are trying to um, give you the injection in your medial cubital vein, like on your elbow, right? You see, sometimes they miss the vein
Yeah.
Exactly.
and they have to like re-inject you. And some nurses sometimes get it on the next try. Some might stab you like 10 times before they finally get the vein. Has any of you experienced this before?
Yeah, not me, but
I've
I
had
think
friends who've
I've had
told me,
friends who's
yeah.
told me that.
Okay. So this device is very interesting. It's just shame I've forgotten their name, but they have the device has like an ultrasound
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
in it, and the ultrasound detects where the vein is exactly. Then when you put your hand in, after it's detected where the vein is,
Mm.
it just shoots the needle towards your arm and gets the vein immediately. And it's a very seamless, smooth transition,
Mm.
And after patients have gotten a bit used to it, they even prefer that than like the nurses. So it's like a robot giving you an injection is kind of happening already.
Okay, guy.
Yeah, I was just about to give that example,
Yeah.
actually. Yeah.
Okay, so
Hmm.
before that, me, I still miss my sexiness. Let me just say that. And oh yes, yes, it helps you get well early. I mean, I'm just saying. Now, the last thing I'm going to ask someone, then we wrap up today's podcast, where monitoring devices for healthcare. And before that, before you answer that, I would just want to tell our listeners that we are doing a giveaway on our website, ionibbles.com. And it can be found in the bio, and then you can go there and then you can have access to it. And then you can take a round or two. You might win something for yourself. Now, up here, wearable devices and other monitoring devices.
Mm, I think so. When you say monitoring devices, you mean monitoring devices in like the like
Heartbeat
hospital, or just like the ones you move around with and all that?
in the hospital and the ones you probably move around with. The wearables,
Okay.
like your
Okay.
watch, like your, yeah,
Yes.
mostly it's your watch. Yeah.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I do think they have a huge potential, and increasingly would find more benefits. Like my Apple Watch is able to tell me how my sleep pattern is, at what points I got disturbed, at what points I had like a good amount of sleep, and what times waking up would be best, and all of that. It I have this condition called arrhythmia, and sometimes so it happens a lot when I'm a programmer, so I go long nights without sleeping and without sometimes eating and all of that, and I forget, right? So that's when sometimes these conditions are heightened. My watch is able to tell me when it's about to. So and so then it reminds me that, hey, take your pill, eat whatever. So yeah, I think it's doing a better job than saying, oh, I'm going to go to a doctor once a week and they diagnose me and tell me something based on maybe like a small sample of data that they've covered, and a very static medical background that they have. So yeah, I do think it has potential. In the hospital, I think I would prefer a machine looking after me and tracking my conditions than probably a
Yeah,
doctor
yeah,
coming to me. um Probably like a doctor coming to me every 30 minutes, because the machine, like I think
yeah.
it has machines have a lot of flaws, but it's because we give it so much expectations. That's why the flaws that we get are so heightened. For example, so like there are a lot of flights happening, but whenever maybe one fails, there's a lot of news about it, right? I do think having like something working for you every day and tracking your health has like a huge potential, in that if you even go to a doctor, it helps the doctor diagnose your situation better and recommend next steps for that. Even in the hospital, when you have someone lying in bed, the person is constantly being monitored by machines, and doctors come in occasionally to check on them. So for that, I do see a great symbiotic relationship happening between doctors and wearable companies and the devices themselves.
Thank you, Samuel. So, David, thank you for coming on. Thank you, Apia, for coming on.
For
Guess
sure.
what? This is to our listeners. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and don't forget to share and like and subscribe. We're on YouTube too, and share your comments. Your comments are very important to us. Well, it's been a good day, and I think you enjoyed the episode. I'll always be your number one host. You know who I am. David is smiling because he knows who I am.